Yes, hi. Oh, it's red. We are so red. Look at this. Red, 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 red. Oh, I'm Little Red Riding Hood. Hello. Wait, is my volume all the way up? Yes. Yes, that is better. Can you hear me? I can hear me. Let me know. Can you hear me? You can totally hear me, right? Yeah. Oh, my settings are good. So, what day is it? Well, I know what day it is. You totally know what day it is, don't you? Because today is August 12th. Yes, today is Wednesday, and there you go, and happy birthday, Bob. Exactly. Today is August 12th, and today, well, it's National Julienne Fries Day. I don't have any fries. It is National Vinyl Record Day. I have those. We do. We have a turntable. We have those. It is National Middle Child Day. Oh, it's like Jan Brady Day. The poor middle child who get picked on. Well, Laura Ingalls Wilder, middle child, Mary Carrot, there you go, middle child syndrome, totally. Congressional Startup Day, which changes annually, but apparently it's Congressional Startup Day. It is the 12th. It is Bob Schoonover's birthday. Yes, my husband Bob, it is his birthday today. And, well, we're not going anywhere because, yeah, hello, can't go anywhere. No, sorry, people. What? That's what we're doing. Is it your birthday? That's right, Julie, you have the same birthday. Hi. What we're doing is, he likes the sushi. I also love the sushi. We're going to order some sushi and, bring it in. Pick it up or have them deliver it from our favorite sushi place. Have some sushi brought in. I got some champagne. Chillin'. I just made brownies. He likes them with the carob in them. So I did. I just made brownies. So little things like that. And we're gonna hang out, and he's gonna sit around, play guitar, and we'll have champagne and brownies and sushi, and it'll be fine. There you go, and that's his birthday. Basically, he gets to do whatever he wants for the whole day. Well, I mean after work, but he likes going to work, so there you are. So that's what we're doing. It's his birthday, yay, my birthday. I'm not saying how old he is today. Is it carrot souffle day? I should make carrot souffle. Bob likes carrots. Get that. No, he's like... Some of you have kept track. You actually do know how old he is. It's like... Oh! But he doesn't look it. Does not look it. Alrighty. I have oyster crackers. Because, Pa and his oyster crackers. A packet of oyster crackers in his coat. They're really good. Where are we? Here we are. Book. Bob for vice president of the living room. All right. The Ingalls are on the move. They're on the move again. Everyone's saying happy birthday to Bob. That's so sweet. Thing. The Ingalls are on the move again. And Ma just said, no, we finally got back to Walnut Grove. We're not doing this. But then Pa said, no, we have no money, and my sister Dosha just showed up, and there's a job. It's a job, and lots of money, and we'll do better. And in this case, they were right. They did so much better than Smet. They're none of this starving and eating hardtack business. So it was smart. Get out of town, and less with the farming and more with the town living. So he said, we got to go. And this time, not so covered wagony. They took a train, and then they got like the buggy and drove like however many more miles it was. But none of this cross-country trekking. Nope. And in fact, they took a train, stayed at a hotel, and then took the buggy. So it was, so it wasn't so bad. And they went to Dakota Territory. And so Ma said, okay, if this is the last time. And Pa said, okay, last time. Of course, he said that before. But they were, this time, no, this is it. So, Dakota Territory, yay! Pa met Ma, the girls, at Tracy, and by wagon, they continued west to the railroad camp near the Big Sioux River in Dakota Territory. And see, there you go. So Tracy isn't really far from Walnut Grove. When I read that they went and took a train from Walnut Grove to Tracy and then met the wagon to go to Dakota, I'm kind of like, because I've been to Walnut Grove many times. It's a lovely place. I've been to Walnut Grove, and I have been all over Minnesota, and I've been to Walnut Grove. When you go to Walnut Grove, you stay... What was it? Barrington, I think was a cute little town up the road. New Ulm. There's all these little places that people go to get hotels at to then come into Walnut Grove for the festival and whatnot. And Tracy is like, it's over there. It's like, oh, could you get a room in Walnut Grove? No, but I'm really close. Oh, I'm in Tracy. Oh, well, that's almost like being in Walnut Grove. It's that close. So the idea that you would take a train all the way to Tracy, nowadays, it's like, you can walk. But there you are. So it's really close. And so they took a train because, well, they didn't have a car. So if you don't have a car, Tracy's some distance. But it's like really close. They have highways now. So by wagon, they continued west to the railroad camp near the Big Sioux River in Dakota Territory. So they're still not at a house, but a railroad camp. Again, he's taking them somewhere rough. It's like the hotel thing. Pa had been there all summer, keeping careful records of the hours the railroad employees worked. He's the paymaster. It's a good job, good job. Hard job, but good job. He also sold them goods from the store operated by the railroad company. You know that, oh, my soul to the company store. Yeah, like that. The camp was miles away from any settlement, so the men had to buy what they needed from the company store. Each day, Pa kept a neat ledger of purchases, and the amounts were charged against the men's wages. Looking over Pa's ledger, Laura read some of the purchases of June 1879. 1 pair of overalls, $1. That was pretty good, actually. 1 shirt, 70 cents. 1 pair of boots, $4.40. Now that is good because way back when they were like in Walnut Grove in the books, he got like Pa had a pair of $5 boots. And now it's a price. So they were able to get boots for $4.40, and this is several years later, so that's actually a good price. 1 pair of suspenders, 35 cents. 1 bushel of corn. That's a lot of corn, 52 cents. A loaf of bread was 10 cents. Remember when a loaf of bread was 10 cents? I know people go, I remember a loaf of bread was 10 cents. Like, how old are you? No. If a loaf of bread was $1, that would be like a good deal then. A sack of flour, $3.10. 20 pounds of nails, 80 cents. 2 pans, 35 cents. These are great prices, actually. The railroad men slept and ate in hastily built shanties constructed and operated by the company. For a month's food and shelter, $4.80 was deducted from a man's pay. Now, these are pretty good prices even for 1870s time. They're like decently good prices. But it's that company store thing, and that's why there's that song about the mining thing. Another year older, and what do you get? And deeper in debt, blah, blah. That's that whole thing. Don't call me St. Peter, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. That thing, that song. Very funny song. It was huge, like the early 60s. Well, the owe your soul to the company store was because in coal mining towns and railroad camps and these kind of places, people, often the workers, lived in an on-site area, because often they were places that no town, or in coal mining places, they built the town around the mine. So everything was the company store, and if you worked for the railroad or the mine, you shopped at the company. That was kind of it. And sometimes people literally came in and stayed in little rental properties for a bit. So Roger Miller, yes, that's it, Roger Miller. They stayed in a little town, so they were charged rent by the same people they were working for. And they went and bought things at the company store, which was the same people they were working for. So rather than just pay them and then have them pay rent and then buy stuff at the store, they just charged it, which got weird at the end of the month. If you didn't keep very, very close track, well, they charge you your rent and I guess whatever utilities they had. I didn't have electricity anymore. And then they had whatever you bought at the store, rice and flour and pans and salt pork and all that. And then they just tallied up your bill, and then when they gave you your paycheck, they went, okay, here's minus all of your groceries and your rent. Imagine whatever you pay now in rent and groceries if just at the end of your paycheck came and it went, there you go, we just deducted all your groceries and rent, you're good, you have to pay. Whoa, hey, what, oh, ah. So, yes, unless someone was keeping very close track, knowing what they were going to get, it could be kind of disconcerting. And so sometimes people, if something happened, say they had another kid, somebody got sick, ooh, they could run up quite the bill at the company store. And then the paycheck comes, sorry, you're not getting a paycheck. Yeah, because it's all went. In fact, you owe us money. This happened. So people had to play catch up. So eventually you had people working exactly as the aptly named Satra Dostoevsky says. they were technically slaves because people wound up working and they were just kind of getting room and board. They were working and then they didn't get their paycheck because, oh, well, I'm sorry, it was all the food and the house. And that got a little weird. And if somebody, now luckily they had Pa Ingalls here, so he was keeping proper score and not cheating. But if somebody had, oh boy, if they didn't keep, people got in trouble. They ran up a bill. They wound up owing the company store. So they're going to work every day, not getting paid, and they actually owe their employee money. Not pretty. And if the person at the store cheated, which, you know what people are like, you know somebody did, there you go. They would cheat, and then that people owed. So now they have Pa. Pa, at least, is going to not cheat. He's going to make sure that it's deducted correctly and keep it, let them know. But it was a terrible system, really. And that's why it's better if you get paid and then just say, okay, here's your check. And then you take your check and you pay your rent and you go pay the food. And then it's your business and you'll know how much you owe and it'll a little easier. But it says, yes, very, very popular system with the railroads and the mines and very, very hard on the workers. So, yeah, these guys, it got rough. As we know, there was that big, what was it, by the shores of Silver Lake, and the big fight broke out. And there was the crazy horse thief guy was their friend. Their buddy, the horse thief, saved him. Craziness. So the railroad men slept and ate in hastily built shanties constructed and operated by the company. So they're little shacks. And that's how the $4.80 they're getting charged for isn't even for like a nice place. And so $4.80 they get deducted. Pa brought his family to the Big Sioux Railroad camp, but the work of preparing the railroad tracks there was nearly complete. The equipment and rough wooden shanties were being dismantled and moved farther west. After Pa's ledgers and accounts were checked for accuracy, he moved his family west with the construction crew too. Surveyors came to measure and map out a town where the railroad camp had been, because that's how we got the whole west. They just started building along the railroad. This became the town of Brookings. 7 miles west, the town of Volga was established. Fancy names. Volga boat song. There you go. Laura loved being on the wide, empty Dakota prairie. To her, it was a friendly, never-ending meadow, stretching as far as she could see. The tall prairie grass waved in the wind, and white clouds sailed in the blue sky overhead. Cloud shadows moved across the green land. Old buffalo paths were etched in the ground, and circular depressions were scooped into the prairie where the buffalo had grazed. They'd just been there. They'd just been there. Pa said these are the places. These were called buffalo wallows. But the buffalo were gone now, driven farther west. Laura was glad that she had seen their old grazing grounds before settlers and towns and railroads crowded in. Yeah, they did. They killed all the buffalo. Buffalo. Oh, thank you. Sarah's got it here. Sarah Dean Manley. Volga is pronounced Valga. Valga. Valga it is. Da, 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 da. I keep thinking of the Russian song. Okay, Valga. On the trip from the Big Sioux camp to the one farther west, Laura described the prairie to Mary. It was a long journey by wagon, nearly 40 miles. How long does it take you to drive 40 miles now? You get in your car, 40 miles? I guess the same. The Ingalls family passed little sparkling lakes and wet, marshy sloughs, where rank grass grew as tall as 6 feet high. Prairie swells alternated with long, flat stretches of level land. As the wagon rolled west, Laura felt a deep contentment. She loved that prairie. It was the same way Pa felt. The family was alone, but safe, and only the wind and the earth and the sky and calling birds. Pa and Laura knew that sometime they must stop, but as they drove on, all the prairie seemed to belong to them. She just likes it. She's like Pa. As long as they're in the wagon and going, she's happy. It's like she didn't actually stay in the city. Bill Fun says, how long does it take to go 40 miles? In LA, 10 days. There is a traffic. Yeah. When the sun sank, Laura was thrilled with the spectacle and described it to Mary. A ball of pulsing liquid light. It sank in clouds of crimson and silver, she said. When the sun was gone, the prairie wind quieted and seemed to whisper mysteriously through the waving grass. Finally, far ahead, a few twinkling lights shone through the black night. It was the new railroad camp. The railroad camp was built on the edge of a prairie lake. Some said later that Ma gave the lake its name. I did not know that. Did you know? I did not know. Looking at the water with the shining moonlight glimmering on its surface, Ma called it Silver Lake. Now, is this true? Well, Bill Anderson says it. So that's probably happening. Ma was the one, because there was nobody out there yet. There you go. And Ma said, oh, Silver Lake. Silver Lake may, in fact, been named by Caroline Ingalls. That's cool. We have a Silver Lake in L.A. It's a lovely neighborhood. Silver Lake. And it is big Silver Lake. The Ingalls family moved into a little shanty set apart from the bunkhouses, the company store, and the cookhouse. Ma was firm when she told the girls that they must keep to themselves. A railroad construction crew was not Ma's idea of good neighbors. So Pa worked daily with the men in the company store while the girls stayed with Ma in the shanty. Our interests centered all at home, Laura said. Well, yeah, they made sure the shanty was for the... It was all guys. It was a railroad crew. You really looked like ladies and little girls prancing around the railroad crew. It was just as awful then as it is now. You wouldn't take a bunch of teenage girls down to hang out with the railroad crew. Now, well, you didn't want to do that then either, so there you go. There were very few women in the camp, like practically zero here. One Irish family was there while the father worked on the railroad. Ma heard that their baby was sick, so she went to help, and her skill cured the child. The family wanted to pay her, but Ma would accept no money. Finally, the baby's father came to thank Ma again, blessing her with the name of every saint he knew. He quickly pressed a $5 gold piece into Ma's hand. Ooh, that's pretty good. As the autumn days progressed, the railroad construction just north of Silver Lake Camp neared completion. The men and their teams and their plows and earth scrapers worked in a system that leveled the uneven prairie, filling the low spots of the ground and building embankments where the tracks would be laid. As the work ended, the men started leaving camp and heading back east for the winter. Now that scraper thing, Laura spends remember in Bachelor Silver Lake, 5 pages just describing the whole scraping, earth felling thing. It was very odd. She was apparently just mesmerized by this. But the prairie was, ground went like this. So they literally would go, okay, as they came along and it went to a dip, they filled in the earth, and then as they got to a rise and everything, they scraped. It was level, and then they moved that earth to where it went down to, and it was this almost automated system. They had a big turning thing that scraped, and they just moved it, and it scraped, and then the men picked it up and moved it, and it was sort of fascinating. I don't know for how long, but apparently Laura sat and watched this all day and could not get enough of this and read about it. But it was kind of clever, considering the 1870s and technology being what it was, to figure out how to level that all off. And then right behind them would come the guys going clang, clang, banging the tracks in. This is like you see the old movies with the railroad workers, but the earth leveling, that's the dicey part. In the spring, the tracks would be placed and a new town established alongside them. Pa learned that this town would be called Smet, in honor of a Catholic priest from Belgium. Hey, anybody from Belgium today? We often have the French and the Belgians watching. There you go. A Catholic priest from Belgium. Father Pierre Jean de Smet. Father de Smet had been a missionary to the Sioux Indians and had been much loved by them. The Indians called him Black Robes. Did you know this? I did not know this. See, there you go. There's a lot of, in Wisconsin, you have Eau Claire. There's lots of French places. There's lots of French people in the old days in that part of the world. But a Catholic priest from Belgium, I did not know about him, that was de Smet, was named for him, and that he was actually much loved. Now, usually, as we know, what you hear often about missionaries and Indians is not very good. Very often the missionaries were sent to tell the Indians what to do, and they were quite mean to them, and often there was beatings and terrible, terrible things that went on, and in most places, if you ask the Native Americans, they're like, yeah, the missionaries, not a fan. It was not a pleasant experience. Apparently, Father Pierre Jean de Smet was a different breed, because they're saying that the Sioux Indians were like, oh, Father Jean, de Smet, no, we like him. So that's good to know. Good to know that Father Jean de Smet was not a horrible person. As winter neared and Pa finished his accounting work for the railroad, he and Ma talked of returning east until spring. But one of the railroad surveyors asked Pa a favor. He wanted Pa to stay at the abandoned Silver Lake camp over the winter to guard the tools and railroad property being left there. The surveyor offered Pa a salary and the use of the house, which had been headquarters for the surveying team. It was well stocked with food and coal on a treeless prairie, and coal was a necessity for winter fuel. And they did. And that was how, the thing is, the surveyor's house was really nice. They had, even when they were first first arrived, Laura had said, "Oh, who's got the nice place on the hill that we could stay there, right?" It's like, "Oh, it's a surveyor." So they got to stay in a very pleasant house with coal, with supplies, way better than their shanty. So it was a pretty good deal. The prairie was truly deserted when the railroad camp shut down on December 1st, 1879. The surveyors left. The wild birds that had once screeched over Silver Lake were safe in the south, and the 200 construction workers were gone. Laura said that we were left with only the abandoned shanties in the wind. Now that would be kind of terrifying, because what if something went wrong? What if somebody got sick? You fell down, hurt yourself. It's like literally nothing. It'd be like living on the moon. It'd be like going to like some kind of lunar base camp thing. When the family moved to the surveyor's house, they were snug for the winter. It was a well-built house, and in her book, By the Shores of Silver Lake, Laura described it as large. There was a wide kitchen, dining, living room, a bedroom for Pa, Ma, and Grace, and a pantry and a lean-to. It's a lot. Upstairs, the attic was a bedroom for Mary, Laura, and Carrie. The lean-to held the coal, and the pantry was crammed with food. It was all very comfortable and cozy, Laura said. Well, they'd had a couple winters where they literally almost starved prior to this. So I suppose moving to a great big house, and I remember the twisting hay and the freezing and things. They're like, so for a winter to have all that food and coal, that's pretty good. During the short winter days, Ma and the girls knitted, sewed, told stories, and played games. Pa was often away, wandering over the empty prairie, hunting, trapping, and looking over the country, and guarding stuff. In the evenings, after good meals prepared from the Panty's bounty, Pa again played the fiddle. Before winter set in, he had bought new books, magazines, and newspapers. These were read by the light of the kerosene lamp that glowed over the red-check tablecloth. Now the Ingalls family always read aloud, so that Mary could enjoy the stories. That's good. When Pa hunted and tramped over the prairie, he looked over open land, searching for a homestead. While I'm out, I'll look for a house. One day he joyfully brought the news to Ma and the girls. He had found the perfect place. 160 acres of fine land just a mile from the town site of Smet. A lot of acreage, and Smet, that's like a big town now, so pretty good. It was close enough to town for the girls to go to school easily. Yay! At Christmas time, a young couple from Iowa came to Silver Lake. Robert and Ellie Boast, the Boasts, surprised the Ingalls with their arrival. Didn't they come in like in the middle of the night? They're like freezing. I think it was the coldest night during the winter, Pa wrote. Yeah, that was the night. It was freezing. And then these people like, "Hi, we're on our way somewhere else, but we're going to freeze to death. Can we stay at your house?" There you go. The Boasts. I think it was the coldest night during the winter, Pa wrote, when someone called out of the door. Upon going to the door, which was my surprise, what was my surprise? To see a woman on horseback. But upon looking a second time, I saw a man also. The Boasts settled into one of the abandoned railroad shanties, and they were jolly company for the rest of the winter. Oh, that's much better, because it was like living on the moon. They had come early to establish, they were escaping the east. They came early to establish their homestead claim in spring. The Boasts told Pa that so many people were coming to Dakota, when winter broke, there would be a land rush. Oh, this was that chapter in By the Shores of Silver Lake where Pa's like procrastinating like mad. And all these people keep coming to their house, and they go, "Where are you going?" "We're going to go file our claim, like, tomorrow." And Ma's like, "Aren't you going to file that claim?" "Oh, later. Like 20, 30 people come by their house and tell them they're filing a claim. It's insane. Pa had seen evidence of the coming throng of land seekers. On his hunting trips, he saw rough shanties built on the prairie and other signs of civilization. One day he came home, telling the girls that just 2 miles north of Silver Lake, he had explored 2 empty claim shanties. In one, old clothes hung on a nail. Inside a pocket was an envelope. Was he nosing around other people's stuff? Wait, so let me see if I got this right. He's out, like, garden stuff for the railroad and hunting, and he sees a shack and goes in, and not only goes, "Oh, look, clothes," he goes through the pockets. Why was Pa going somebody's pockets who left their pants hanging in a shanty? what's going on here? Inside a pocket that he just happened to be going through for no particular reason. An envelope addressed to someone. He found an envelope addressed to someone named Almanzo Wilder. Dun 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 dun, foreshadowing. In the other shanty, the name Royal Wilder was written on a big card and left on a rough plank bunk. So Royal marking his bed. In February of 1880, not long after Laura's 13th birthday, Pa drove off for Brookings, where a government land office had been established. There, he filed a claim to the homestead he'd found near Smet. But you see, there you go. He already knew that the Almanzo and Royal were setting up. So it's just, what is he, Goldilocks? Yeah, he's just, yeah. Oh, what's in here? But he knew about the Wilders. Pa's nosy is what Pa is. So he found the land office, and there he filed the claim to the homestead he'd found in Smet. He discovered many other newcomers at the office, eagerly filling on quarter sections, which is 160 acres, was a quarter of a square mile, of the free land. Settlers could pay the government $1.25 per acre for a 160-acre tract, or they'd get homestead. Pa told the girls that homesteading was a bet with Uncle Sam to see if a man could stay on the land for the 5-year requirement. And they've already tried that, 8 times. They were supposed to be doing that in Kansas, but didn't file the claim. And they were in Indian land. But that's what they're supposed to do in Kansas. He's supposed to know how this homesteading thing works. Early in the spring of 1880, the land seekers started arriving on the prairie. Because the surveyor's house was the only building for miles around, Pa and Ma found themselves unexpectedly in the hotel business again. Strangers who came to the door were hungry and cold. They were glad to pay Ma 25 cents for a meal and another 25 cents to sleep in their blankets on the floor around the stove. Now that was a funny, cute episode in the book where it's like, okay, people keep showing up, and so they're feeding them, and then they're like, okay, it's kind of gotten to be 45 people. Maybe we should do something. And yeah, Ma's like, we're going to run out of food. We got to go to the store. So it's okay, 25 cents just to hit them up. And 25 cents if they sleep, 25 cents if they eat. And it worked out, so it paid for everything. Ma and Laura worked hard feeding the newcomers. They fried salt pork and potatoes, made baked beans and brewed hot tea. I like baked beans, and I love hot tea. That'd be pretty good. And Ma baked her delicious sourdough biscuits. Biscuits. There was no milk available, so the bread and biscuits were made from dough using soured water and flour. Ugh. When a visitor asked Ma for some of her recipes, she found it hard to explain how much of each ingredient she used. Goodness, she exclaimed, I never measure anything. Now, that's true. A lot of women didn't. If the old ladies back then, you made it so many times. You didn't, or pinch of this and a handful of that, and you could do it. For baking, that's a little complicated, because baking, you really need this much baking powder and this much soda and this much flour. It gets a little dicey. Top of the stove cooking. You're doing something in a skillet, you can kind of get away with anything. It's just, I've gotten to where, there are things I cook that I don't measure, because I've made it enough times. I know. But I do measure. But baking, I want to know how many teaspoons of baking soda I'm putting in there. That's a little more exact. But, the surveyor's house became as hectic and noisy as the hotel in Burr Oak had been. But Laura was happy to see the money mount up from the meals and sleeping places they sold. She knew that it would be expensive to start a new farm on the prairie in the spring. So it did. It got a little extra cash. Now, they didn't really mention in by the Silver Lake when they were taking care of all those people. Oh, hi, we did this before because we all worked at a hotel. The Ingalls family was surprised and happy to see, the Reverend Alden, Reverend Edward Alden from Walnut Grove, among a crowd of men who wanted to spend the night. Yay! He was being sent west again to start new congregational churches along the railroad line. The first church service in Smet was held in the surveyor's house. Mr. and Mrs. Boast and the Ingalls family were the congregation. Ma knew that history was being made, so she wrote down the date of that first service, February 29th, 1880. Oh, it was a leap year. But she's right. I mean, technically, it became the church in Smet, and it was the first service. On the 1st of March, Laura and Carrie walked from the surveyor's house to the town site of Smet nearby, and it would have still been mighty cold in March in South Dakota. There was very little to see. Carrie came home complaining that all she saw were sticks stuck in the ground. Ma explained that those were stakes to indicate lots where homes, stores, and a church and school would be. Pa bought lots along what would become de Smet's Main Street. He tore down abandoned railroad shanties for lumber. I hope he asked first. Gotta watch that bother. They were abandoned. Okay. Nobody's pants were hanging in them. The ones he tore down, I hope. Built 2 more buildings. Store buildings. He built, that's the store. He built 2 buildings. One of them he sold, and the other he kept as an investment. So that's actually very smart. So he bought lots, built things, and sold one. Was he like getting smart? Then a man named Hawthorne also built a store, and Mr. Beardsley constructed a hotel. Lumber was hard to obtain on the prairie and had to be hauled from the east by wagon until trains started arriving regularly at the new town site. Those were great days, Laura said, of the building of de Smet in April 1880. 16 buildings were quickly erected. A newspaper called the Kingsbury County News was started. The county was organized, and Paul was called in to help as the first settler of the town site. He was elected Justice of the Peace. Pa Ingalls was Justice of the Peace. Now that's kind of hilarious. Did he marry people? I mean, those of us modern folk, city people, we always go Justice of the Peace. Yeah, in TV movies, they're always the guy who marries the couple in an emergency. I think the Justice of the Peace did more than marry people. I think it was kind of like a county supervisor. Maybe it's that. I don't know. But back then, I mean, it was almost like being mayor. Justice of the Peace. It was an exciting day when the railroad track was finally completed and trains started regularly arriving and departing from de Smet. Homesteaders flooded in from the east, among them the Wilder brothers and their sister Eliza Jane from Spring Valley, Minnesota. Oh, the plot thickens, yes. The surveyors returned, and the Ingalls family then moved into Pa's store on Main Street. In those days, Laura observed, once people started going west, they usually kept on going, making stops along the way. It did not surprise the Ingalls family to meet again in de Smet some of the old friends they'd known in the big woods and in Walnut Grove. So they did run into, it's like, in the show it looked like we were making stuff up, but they did run into a lot of the same people when they moved. Well, the Reverend Alden kept popping up because he's moving. Who else did they run into? George and Maggie Masters arrived in de Smet from Walnut Grove. Well, of course, they were hotel people, so they were moving. And Ma invited them to stay in the store. While they were there, their son was born, the first baby born in de Smet. Despite the excitement of the building of the town around her, Laura knew that it was the end of the old free days of the prairie. So if the Masters moved there, that means what? The awful Genevieve? So is the snooty Nellie in Little Town on the Prairie Genevieve Masters? I know he'll say, Anderson will say, because he knows these things. Town life was not what the Ingalls family wanted. Although they did better at it, they didn't starve like every time they were on the prairie. They were eager to begin farming again. As soon as he could, Pa built a shanty on the homestead claim. It was a tiny house, so small that Ma could only laugh when she saw it. It looks like half a woodshed that has been split along the ridgepole. The shanty was covered with black tar paper when the family moved their belongings out to the homestead. I mean, they lived in a dugout, and she still thought this wasn't so hot. There was much to do with the homestead. Oh, they're all on the same U.S. Highway 14. It's the Laura Ingalls Wilder Memorial Highway. Did you notice the Laura Ingalls Memorial Highway? There was much to do. A well had to be dug. Shelter for the horses and livestock had to be built. Pa's plow began to cut into the tough prairie sod as he worked long days or turning up the soil. A garden was planted. Although de Smet was just a mile away, Laura did not go there all summer. She was busy helping Pa and working with Ma in the shanty and in the garden. That was all that jumping in the hay stuff. All over the green prairie, families like the Ingalls were starting homes. Laura wished, as Pa did, that they could go still farther west. But her journeys were limited to walks with Mary to the low hill on the homestead. Often they went at sunset time, when the air was luminous and Mary could feel the light on her face. as the sun dropped in the sky and clouds were tinted with purple and gold and pink and red, Laura described the prairie spectacle. "You make pictures when you talk, Laura," Mary would say. Laura was thrilled to witness these western sunsets, but she hoped one day to see what was beyond Dakota Territory, where the Ingalls family had safely settled on their homestead. See, that's how that writing thing starts. Now, you see, Ma and Pa were very literate. You're not hearing that, oh, Laura learned to read and they were these bumpkins and Laura writing was a new thing. They were very educated. They read the newspaper, they read books, they read magazines. Pa was elected Justice of the Peace. These were not hayseed country bumpkin people who couldn't, write their name or something. They could clearly... Ma had been a teacher, and Pa's no dummy. They're talking about how Pa was, singing and dancing. Pa would have come to Hollywood and been a star. Pa, clearly... And all those songs... he practically had a degree in musicology. He could play the fiddle. It's hard to play the violin. That's not an easy thing to do. And he knew all of those songs. So clearly, so these were not stupid people. And then they talk about writings of Caroline Pa. They have letters. They have things they wrote where they talk. And you see in their quotes, when they quote Ma or Pa, it's the grammar is all totally reasonable and correct. So these were not like, we're on the prairie. Gosh, Laura's going to write a book now. They expected her to do something, like teach or write. So probably, it's just that Paul was a Freemason, for heaven's sakes. So they knew she was going to do something. So the idea that she went on to write, remember before she wrote the book, she wrote for the newspaper, she did all sorts of things. So the idea that Laura wound up becoming a writer probably wasn't like a shock. I'm sure they were, what is happening with my hair? Hilarious up here. It wasn't a shock. These were not illiterate people. These were smart folk, which is good. I love all the stories of how they read. They read aloud. They read to the kids. They read to Mary when she couldn't see anymore. I love that. We all need to do more of that. Reading every day here. It's awesome reading to you guys. But, and originally, when I started this, I thought, oh, what fun. I'll just, I'll get some reading in. And then I was like, oh, yeah, read it to other people. But I also, when I started this, I thought, oh, I should totally do this because I was at this acting workshop one day. Going down to the Screen Actors Guild. I got too many things with my little snackies and my crackers and whatnot here in my bowl. I was at this workshop at the Screen Actors Guild, and there was this acting teacher, and somebody asked him, what can I do? I'm not in any plays right now. I'm not working right now. What can I do, what would you recommend for somebody who's just starting out in Hollywood? I'm going to be taking some classes. I don't have a lot of money right now, yada, yada, yada. And he said, read every day and try to read aloud at least once a day. Read everything you get your hands on, plays, books, everything. And when you're hanging around the house, whatever it is you're reading, whether it's a play or a script or just a book or even a magazine article, read out loud. Hour a day, and have anything. He says it will improve your reading skills. It will improve your voice and your speech. It's good practice. And he says, and when you go to audition, sometimes there's cold reading where they go, oh, surprise, here's the script. Could you just do this right now? And you have no time to work on it or anything. Your ability to read things and get the gist of it right away. All of that will be improved. You will be a better actor, a better speaker, better. Just read. Just whatever the heck you're reading, magazine, whatever, read it out loud for part of the day. And pretty much any books on acting, they talk about doing that. So I said, oh, I will read I thought that would be fun to read Little House books. And, I'll read aloud today, and that'll, you keep you in shape, doing sit-ups. And then, here I am hanging out on the internet chatting with you guys all day, so it's great. But yes, it's very good. And Ingalls were reading out loud all the time. It's good for the brain. It's, people are always going on about doing crossword puzzles and things being good for preventing Alzheimer's and all this sort of thing. Absolutely. And Same thing. Reading and reading out loud does wonderful things for your brain and keeps you sharp. So, absolutely. See, and someone's going, yes, it totally worked. Yes. Everyone's going, yep. That's what I do. So, absolutely. Read out loud, read a book. So, there you are. So, that's it today. I will see you tomorrow. And, wash your hands and wear your masks and stay safe and call your friends and read a book. Read a book.